but this book is just not for me.
Oh, I don't know what this is, but I like it.
I'm hoping that this is going to be at least a 4-star read, but all of that is pretty much just to say that I bought some books and I just realized that I don't care. Hello, I am finally getting around to the latest installment in Is the Goldsboro Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship Worth My Money? Now, if you have not seen this series before, this is only the second installment, so I wouldn't be surprised. But it's not as ominous as it sounds. I get quite a few subscription boxes, some I rep for, some I pay for, and what I really want to be doing is holding myself accountable and making sure that if I'm paying for a monthly subscription, that I'm actually making use of it, because it is quite a lot of books to keep on top of, but there's no point me paying the like £26 a month for the subscription if it turns out that I don't like the book. So I need to be reading them to make sure that the subscription is still worth my time, and also just so that I'm not amassing all of these books that I'm not reading. So the last round that I did was for the September, October and November 2021 picks. This round is going to be for the December, January and February picks, so I'm a little bit delayed with this one. And if you guys don't know what the Goldsboro Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship is, it is a monthly book only science fiction and fantasy subscription where every month for me it's £26.09 I think, including shipping, because I'm in the UK where it ships from. But for that price, every single month you will get a brand new hardback science fiction or fantasy release in an exclusive first edition that is also signed and numbered. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the books as I'm reading them, but the ones we're going to be reading in this vlog are Absinthe by Brendan P. Bellicourt. This one is an adult sci-fi and it was the December book. We also have Age of Ash by Daniel Abraham. This one was the January book and it is an adult high fantasy. And the February pick was another adult high fantasy, which is The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. So at first glance of these three books, this is the one that I'm most nervous about because it is historical. It's like an alternate history and it has some like automata steampunky kind of vibes in it as well. It's set in Chicago in the 1920s. I am going to be starting off with this one, and then I think that one of these two is going to be my favorite. I can't lie, I haven't really heard great things about either of them, but premise alone, I feel like this one sounds like it has the more interesting narrative, but this one sounds more like it's going to be one that I enjoy. This one follows a thief in this bustling like city of trade, and she's trying to find out what happened to her brother, who I think has been murdered. And this one is the story of a traveling justice, but told from the perspective of like his secretary slash apprentice. So this one sounds more interesting and more like coming from the perspective of, I haven't read as much like this, but this one sounds more like typically like what I would enjoy. And this is from one of the authors who co-writes The Expanse as well, which I've heard amazing things about The Expanse. We'll leave those two for another day. We're going to be kicking it off with the one that I'm most nervous about. Yeah, it's Chicago, 1928. There's a great war. There's a substance called absinthe that changes people. It just has a lot of things in it that I do not like. So we'll see how it goes. I'm definitely going to keep an open mind, as I am with all of the books from this subscription, like books in general, but this subscription, because one of the reasons why I did want this is because I feel like I have a lot of like hyped books on my shelves, and I wanted to kind of open my perspective to new adult sci-fi and fantasy. There is young adult in the subscription occasionally, but it is mainly adult, but just sci-fi and fantasy that I wouldn't have necessarily picked up on my own, because even if I don't go off exclusively hype, I tend to listen to the reviews of people who I trust in like the booktube community. So we'll be open-minded, but in terms of predictions, this is the one that I don't think is going to be for me.
You used to call me sweetheart. It was different when we first met. Fast car with your hand on my head.
So I know that I said literally a couple of hours ago that I would go into this with an open mind, even though I didn't think I was gonna like it, and I swear that I did. I swear that I went into this like ready and like open to whatever it would be, but this book is just not for me. So I tried to make it an even 100 pages in. I made it to page 86 and then got hungry, so I just went to make lunch, and I don't see the point in going back just to get to page 100, because I'm like 95% sure that I will not enjoy this book. First off, what it's about. We're following this guy called Liam, who is the mechanic for this really rich family of like inventors in 1928 in Chicago, and there was a war that ended, I think, in 1918, the Great War of 1918. The main character Liam and his friend are both war vets. Liam suffered a head injury as well at the end of the war, so he now remembers very little about it. But this opens up where the president is coming to give a speech, and he's saying that this like opposing government, like in a different part of the world, like an uprising, are trying to poison the citizens of America, so like you can volunteer to have this antidote. So that's one element of this story, like the government and the antidote, which I'm pretty sure is suspicious. But then we also have the elements of the war where it's not really clear what was going on with that. There's obviously something sinister going on there because the flashbacks that the main character is having don't correlate with the supposed memories that he's supposed to have. Like he thinks that he was a mechanic, but he keeps having flashbacks of like actual battle that he doesn't think that he would have been in. We also have automata in here, like the family of inventors have a robot chauffeur that's also like a member of the family. And then we also have the substance of absinthe on top of that, which as far as I can tell from where it's been mentioned in the first 80 pages, it's just like absinthe was back in the day and it makes you trip balls. But then there's also like people who can possibly bend reality or do something. They've got some sort of like powers to shift perception or maybe reality in some way. And it was just all a lot for 86 pages, especially considering that it just kind of throws you in there. But the reason why I know that this is not for me is in those first 86 pages we've had 4 gunfights, and it is all very like noir gangster movie with sci-fi elements, and it's just not for me. Like it's just, that's just the best way I can explain it. It's just not something that I'm even slightly interested in. As well as that, this is clearly a very plot driven story. I do like plot driven stories from time to time, but I definitely prefer either character driven or an equal amount of plot and character. And from what I read of the first nearly 100 pages of this book, there was nothing at all that I liked about any of the characters, and the plot was just like very fast and like gangster movie-esque. Sadly, I'm going to be putting this down, which I didn't mention at the beginning of this. If you've seen the first installment, you'll remember I have a little chart where I like rank the books. Don't remember if I have a DNF column, but if not, I'm gonna have to add one now. But yeah, this is what the ranking is so far. I am really sad about this, but it's not like me to DNF, but I feel like I'm also coming to a point where I need to start DNFing things instead of persevering with them. And like with the majority of books, like I won't DNF if I have some sort of hope or belief that it'll come round or become more enjoyable at any point throughout the book. But just the first 80 pages of this, I was like, no, I'm 95% sure that the rest of this book would not change my mind about it. So that was a very fast turnaround. I guess we'll move on to the January book, which is I think the longest one that I plan on reading. And this one is, oh, it's not very long, it's 432 pages. This one I do have high hopes, decent amount of hopes for, just because it is Daniel Abraham who co-authored The Expanse. And this one, as I mentioned earlier, it's about a girl who's a thief in a city called Kithamar that is a center of like commerce and wealth and all of that good stuff. And her brother has been murdered, so she's obviously trying to figure out what happened. I think that the way that this series is going to play out is that each book tells the same story from a different perspective, or it like continues the story from a different perspective in maybe a different time. The cover of this alludes to there being more than one time period, because this side looks really ancient and then this side has like city lights and things in the background. But yeah, that is all I know about it. I haven't heard terrible things. I think I kind of heard average things about this, but I have a good feeling.
Your voice was my favorite sound. Oh, but now you say you miss me. Haven't seen you in a while since you did what you said you would never do to me. Well, click, click, bang, bang. This sweetheart ain't so sweet. Broken heart in a skin-tight black dress. I can look good through the madness. I don't play nice like I did before. You had me on a leash and you liked that. These puppy dog eyes now bite back. I don't play nice like I did before. It all went up in flames. You used to call me sweetheart. It was different when we first met. Fast car with your hand on my headrest. Wow, your voice was my favorite sound. Oh, but now you say you miss me. Haven't seen you in a while since you did what you said you would never do to me. Well, click, click, bang, bang. This sweetheart ain't so.
So I've just finished filming my TBR and also the 48-hour Bookathon announcement, and I'm going to crack on with editing. I'm aiming to have both of those edited and scheduled by the end of the day, but I do have a couple of parcels that have arrived over the last couple of days. I was going to put them in my unboxing video whenever I film that, but I know that I need this one before then, so I thought I'd come open them here. They're both from publishers. I've also been waiting until I felt a little bit better, which I do now. I woke up this morning, I feel so much better, like my lung function is back to normal. This is like a catch-up, and if you watched my last vlog where at the end I was just not doing well, I'm doing much better. I feel like I am almost back on track. But let's crack open this one first, which is from Del Rey, and this one is, I think it should be, yeah, a finished copy of a book that is out on the 10th of May, which is Misrule by Heather Walter. So this is the sequel to Malice, which is a Sleeping Beauty retelling from the perspective of the dark fairy that curses Aurora. So we're following this fairy called Alice, who is the Dark Grace, and the fairies in this world like bestow blessings upon people, so they can bestow like health, beauty, wealth, all of that good stuff. But Alice specializes in curses, and she's treated terribly because of that. This is also sapphic. It's mainly about Alice and Aurora, and while I didn't love the first book, I am interested to see where this book takes it based on the end of Malice, and it is only a duology as well. I am on the book tour for this as well. I think that my day is the 5th, which I've remembered because it's my birthday, and I will be doing that over on Instagram, so this I will be picking up very soon. And then I have a mystery parcel from Source Books, which I wasn't expecting. I'm never expecting anything from Source Books, to be fair, so I have no idea what this one is, but it's in a Source Books send me the nicest packages, and they come from the US as well. Like, there's no UK publishers that send me nice PR packages, which I feel bad now actually, because Del Rey just sent me a book, but like, you know, packages, even though this isn't like, this is just an envelope with a sticker on, it's still a little something a little bit nice, you know. So it says Fall's Buzziest Fantasy Debut. No idea what this is. Oh, we have a box inside here as well. I don't know what this is, but I like it. The book is Monsters Born and Made by Tanvi Berwa. Oh, that and Like a Fool, I thought this golden boy cared about me. The cover is gorgeous as well. I don't know if this will have the same. Oh no, this is a really, I am so excited. This is a letter from the author. Something that just immediately stuck out from this is that it says, what was the last series you were obsessed with? I ask because the idea of Monsters Born and Made emerged from my obsessions with the incredible made-up worlds I was reading about. Middle-earth, Camp Half-Blood, Aurelia, Panem, Ravka, Courts of Prythian, Westeros. So I came up with one of my own, Ophir, a world of oceans filled with dangerous monsters and humanity clinging for dear life on scattered islands. How do I get in this? This is so pretty. So is it a, oh, it's a slipcover, but here it says welcome to the glory race, and it has another bookmark that is a ticket to the 105th anniversary of the glory race, September 6th 2022. This is honestly gorgeous marketing packaging. Oh, and here we have the book. This is stunning. So the synopsis says, in this epic South Asian inspired fantasy debut, Coral grew up battling the monsters that live in the surrounding seas, but it didn't prepare her to face the cunning cruelty of the ruling elite. 16-year-old Coral and her brother Emmerich risk their lives to capture the monstrous maristags that live in the Black Seas around their island. They have to, or else their family will starve. In an oceanic world swarming with vicious beasts, the ruling elite have indentured her family to provide the maristags for the glory race, a deadly chariot tournament reserved for the upper class. The winner receives golden glory, the losers, if they're lucky, survive. When Coral fails to capture a maristag for this year's race, her family can't afford medicine for her chronically ill little sister. Coral's only choice is to do what no one has ever dared, cheat her way into the glory race. But Coral must race against contenders who have trained their whole lives and have no intention of letting a low-caste girl steal their glory. And when riots break out, Coral has to do more than win the race. She'll have to stop the whole island from burning. This sounds really good, and this cover is absolutely beautiful. So thank you very much to Source Books for sending this one my way. In terms of reading, I'm like 130 pages into Age of Ash, and I don't feel like I'm ready to give you guys an update on it yet, because it's interesting and it is nicely written. Like, it's quite, I wouldn't call it a flowery writing style, but it is a descriptive writing style. But it feels like a character driven story if the character was the city, and because of that I'm not sure whether I'm enjoying it, even though I'm finding it interesting and loving the writing. So I want to get, I'll say when I get to halfway, I'll come and let you guys know my thoughts with a little bit more
substance. But yeah, that's where I'm at the minute with that one.
So I feel like it took me a while to get here, but I'm not quite at the halfway point in Age of Ash, but I'm on page 202, and this book is what, 450 pages? I just realized I kind of wanted to finish this tonight. It's 430, but like I'm not gonna read 230 pages of this. So it's taken me so long to read this because I can't lie, it's kind of boring. The writing style is very descriptive, and like I said, it's kind of like a character driven story, but if the character that's driving the story is the city and not an actual person. So we are following this character called Alice, whose brother has died, and she is pretty much following in his footsteps to try and figure out how he died and what he was involved in that caused his murder. There is a knife that is very central to what happened to Alice's brother that has some inscriptions on it, and a lot of people really want this knife essentially. But what you'll have is you'll have a chapter of Alice doing something like she'll go to visit her mother, and it will kind of not pause the narrative, but as Alice is going to visit her mother, it will tell you about the like architecture of the particular area of the city that Alice's mother lives in, and like maybe she'll walk past a fountain where a lot of people are gathered, and it'll tell you about like the typical routines or like social customs of people in this city. So the writing itself is quite descriptive. It is, like I said, I wouldn't say it's a flowery writing style, but it's definitely relatively descriptive. But like, while in concept, I think it's kind of cool that this is a story about the city and the people who make up the city. It's not necessarily a compelling narrative to follow, so I'm finding that I have to really concentrate when I'm reading, because otherwise my mind will kind of just wander off and I'll stop properly paying attention to what's actually going on in the story. So I am really struggling with this, but I am almost halfway through now, and I will say that it has picked up a little bit, not in pace, but I have become a little bit more interested in the story because some of the elements of the political plot line of the book have become a little bit clearer. The book takes place over the course of a year, and it is centering around a new king that is coming into power after the death of the old king. So there are a lot of politics behind the scenes of that, and even though the prince slash king himself hasn't been a focal point of the story, it's very much about the political machinations behind him coming into power, and I'm assuming that it's going to like build as we go throughout the book. So I'm definitely more interested in that because I was struggling with the timeline of this book as well. It didn't seem to flow smoothly, and I needed to take a moment to like reestablish where we were up to in the story every time the chapter changed. So a lot of Alice searching for what happened to her brother has been periods of waiting, which once again not very compelling to read about. But I will say that the grief in here is actually part of the story. So you'll find in a lot of books like the death of somebody like a family member or a friend or a partner will be the catalyst for a story, but aside from like offhand mentions of it, it won't really form much of the focus of the story. Where in this you can really see how the death of Alice's brother has affected her life and how she sees signs of him everywhere she looks, and also like everything that she does from the moment he dies is going to be like the first time that she does something without her brother in the world. And I am really appreciating that kind of representation in here as well, and that it isn't just like brushed under the rug. So it took me a fair amount of time, but I have finished Age of Ash by Daniel Abraham, and you know what, I enjoyed it for the most part by the time I got to the end, but it did take me a really long time, like over halfway through this book, to actually get into the story. I thought that the writing style was too, I don't know if I want to say distracting, it was really like a nice writing style, but to the point where it was kind of lulling me to sleep and I couldn't fully focus on it without really forcing introducing myself to, and it really does focus on like very small elements of the city throughout here, which is why I think it took me so long to get through. I did really like the political plotline when that started to become a little bit clearer and started to develop. When I was doing sprints yesterday, I know one of my patrons, Rachel, said that they really liked Samish in here as one of our main characters. She is a thief who is in love with the main character of Alice. So while Alice is searching for the person who killed her brother, Samish gets involved because she loves Alice. And you know, Samish was alright, but I really liked Alice, and I think the reason why I liked her is because this is a book that is very much about grief, and I really like the portrayal of grief throughout here because it's just so clear and kind of heartbreaking how much Alice just cannot let go of her brother, and I thought it was quite an accurate depiction in how she was behaving and what she was doing. I have one tab in here, I don't even know if you can see it, it's like here, that is something very poignant that Alice said about grief that I really liked. Whether I'm going to continue with this series very much depends on what the synopsis says about the sequel, I guess. I did look on Goodreads, there's nothing about the sequel on there yet, but when there is, I'll see kind of what direction the series is going in, because I know there's something odd about this series. Like, this storyline feels wrapped up, but it did leave off in terms of the politics. Like, it feels like Alice's story is done, but the political plot line felt left open. So I'm very intrigued to see the direction of the next book, and then I'll decide whether I want to continue, because I did only give this one 3 stars. Probably would have been 4 if I was as invested in the beginning and the middle as I was at the end. I am currently also participating in Magical Readathon and Realmathon. We're in the last couple of days. So for Magical Readathon, this was my book for Conjuration. The prompt for that was to read a book with a light source on the cover, which is up in the back over here. And for Realmathon, this only got me, I think it was about 8 points, which is my lowest ranked book so far, but I claimed those 8 points for bail with this book. So this is what the chart's looking like so far. This was not a great addition to it, and honestly I was so close to DNFing this. The only reason that I didn't is because I've already DNF'd one of the Goldsboro books. I didn't want to do another one. So we're moving on to my last book now, which I have started. I went to the hairdresser's today, as you might be able to tell because my hair is super smooth and super straight. I just had a trim really, which is why there's nothing too different, but I did start it. I only read 5 pages, but I do like the writing style so far. But my next book is going to be Justice of Kings by Richard Swan, and this one is an adult fantasy that is following a traveling justice, and I think his life story, or at least like an important part of his life, but it's told from the perspective of his secretary. I know Aaron from Booked and Busy was really excited about this and didn't end up liking it, which has me a little bit worried, although I do know that Aaron's ratings are a little bit harsher than mine, so like maybe I'll enjoy it. But we do also tend to have similar taste. I'm hoping that this is going to be at least a 4-star read after a DNF and a 3-star, because 3 stars to me mean I like them, but they're not like going to leave a lasting impression on me. So I want like a standout book from this video, and I'm hoping this is going to be the one. Aaron also recommended the audiobook of this to me, which I may try because I do want to get some like design work and stuff tonight. I'm currently on sprints with Mel from Melanie Read, so I might stick on the audio and see if I can follow along while I do some sketching, because as we all know, fantasy audio and me sometimes do not mesh. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. And this is the last book I need for my calling for Magical Readathon. I'm not actually going to hit Necromancer anymore, but I'm still on track for Demonologist, providing I can get this finished before the end of the month. And the prompt for that is to read a book that has creatures with claws on the cover, and there are 2 stone wolves in the background here, and then we'll see how many points it gets me for Realmathon. But yeah, I'm going to download the audiobook for this. It is only available on Audible as far as I can tell, so I will need to use a credit for it, but we'll see how the audiobook goes.
You used to call me sweetheart. It was different when we first met. Fast car with your hand on my headrest. Wow, your voice was my favorite sound. Oh, but now you say you miss me. Haven't seen you in a while since you did what you said you would never do to me. Well, click, click, bang, bang. This sweetheart ain't so.
You can hear a vape buzzing in the background. Curtis is currently doing some hoovering, but we've been out today. As you guys know, I've been suffering over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. I've been having quite a bit of an anxiety flare up, which I think it reached its peak. Like, the worst day was this week on maybe Wednesday. But all of that is pretty much just to say that I bought some books. So we went to a charity shop and the books in there are 5 for £1.25, and I found a few gems. I did not end up getting 5, and the way that it works is if you don't get 5 then they are as priced, so I ended up paying like £3.10 for 3 books. But the money was for charity, so I wasn't bothered about saving myself £2 for the sake of bringing home 2 books that I didn't want. But I did end up with 3. A couple of them I don't need any of these, but I picked up The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is a book that I read a couple of years ago, but I got it out from my library, so I don't actually have my own copy. So when I saw it for £1.25, I was like, this is my opportunity to pick up my own copy of this. The first book that I saw in there that I gravitated towards was Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie, which is the 3rd book in the First Law trilogy. I do already have the first book. I haven't started this series yet. It's a grimdark series and it's about a torturer, and there are, I think, is there 2 trilogies and 3 standalones that make up like the First Law universe. As I said, I haven't started, so I'm not 100% sure, but I know that this is a series that I definitely want to read at some point. So book 3 for £1.25, bargain. With adult fantasy as well, the price has gone up, so I think it's now like $9.99, at least $8.99 or $9.99 is the standardized pricing for a like adult fantasy hardback in the UK. So even though I'm trying to restrict the amount that I just pick up sequels when I haven't started a series, could not resist this. And then the last one I got, I was a little bit torn about, because you guys may have heard me say about this series that I actually want to read the first book, make sure I like it, and then change out the edition that I have for the new ones that have been recently released. But I picked up The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan, which is the 2nd book in the Wheel of Time series. So this is the edition that matches the first book that I have. If I enjoy this series, I want to have the like landscape editions, the paperbacks that they've just released, that are kind of like, they were timed to release at the same time as the TV show, and they kind of match my paperback editions of Game of Thrones, but this one was 60 pence. So I couldn't resist and I picked it up. And like, if I do want to swap this out for a different edition, isn't the end of the world. It cost me 60 pence. So there is my little book haul. I have started Justice of Kings. I am listening to the audiobook while I'm doing a little bit of illustration. I did actually kind of finish a piece. I'm not sure if I'm 100% done with it, but I'm looking at doing a new product range for my store, which means that I need to get some designs laid out, and I've been kind of procrastinating on making a start on those for quite some time, because like normally in my downtime I spend it reading and I don't listen to a whole ton of audio. So like I'm trying to take advantage of having an audiobook to work on some illustration. It was actually really good, especially as I said with having issues with anxiety and depression this week. My normal management, like when I'm feeling anxious, is to occupy my brain and my hands at the same time. So like listening to something like a podcast or an audiobook while I diamond paint or do a jigsaw or do a little bit of sketching is kind of my go-to, but it's been difficult for me to do that because I'm reading books specifically for this vlog, which generally means that I want to be reading them physically, and if I'm doing something else it's taking time away from reading. I'm a slow reader anyway, especially when I'm anxious, so it's been like a whole thing. But anyway, I made it 75 pages into Justice of Kings, and I'm not loving this one either. I do really like the writing style. I like how intricate the world seems to be. We're set in, I don't really have a full picture of the world yet because it's very early days, but we're following this traveling justice who travels around to enforce the rules of the Empire. Now it's very clear that the Empire, while it's been around a little while, is still relatively new in that there are remnants of the ways people lived before the Empire still in effect. Like the very first thing that the Justice conquers in this book is punishing people for worshipping a god that is not part of the Empire. It's also kind of, it's not been fully explained yet, but the Justices do have some kind of, I want to say like magical powers, which is intriguing, and I'm interested to see if that's going to come into play throughout this. But it's setting up a murder mystery. So this lady has been murdered at this town that the Justice and his secretary slash apprentice arrive at. They're trying to get to the bottom of who has murdered her. So I'm not really into the murder mystery element of it. The audio narrator, while her narration of the story is good, her voice sounds a lot older than the character I guess that she's supposed to be portraying. The main character is 19 at the point that the story's unfolding, but I'm getting the impression that it's being told from like a point further in the future, and the secretary slash apprentice is looking back on her life, which could explain why the narrator seems a little bit older. But she also has like a little bit of a posh British accent, which I'm not vibing with, but I like the writing in general so far. Don't really know how I'm gonna vibe with the murder mystery kind of plot, because I don't read mysteries. Like, I do occasionally, but I tend to prefer a thriller that's like a little bit shocking and a little bit twisted to a classic whodunit, which is what this story seems to be setting up to be. So I do have the finale of, not the Buffyverse watch along tonight, but the finale of Buffy. We will still have one season of Angel after Buffy wraps up, but that is going to be in just over an hour and a half. I haven't read a single page today, and I do actually want to see if I can get a little bit of a workout in, because like I said, mental health, it really helps me. So I don't know what's going to happen regarding reading tonight, but we'll see if I manage to, because this is the last day of April as well, so I wanted this book done today. Absolutely 100% not going to happen, but if I do manage to finish it tomorrow, with it being just the first of the month and also the end of the week, I will take that as having finished it in this month and then just like extend it for myself a little bit, I guess. I have some not ideal news. I've decided that I'm going to be DNFing Justice of Kings. I'm just not in a place mentally right now, after having a little bit of a rough week mentally, where I can struggle through a book that I'm not enjoying. And the fact of the matter is, I'm just not enjoying this. I didn't really pick it up at all yesterday. I read one chapter and I read that in 2 sittings. It was only 10 pages, and I've just been listening to the audiobook. I sat down to get some like design work done, lit a candle, got real comfortable, was listening to the audio, and I just realized that I don't care. So I made it to somewhere around 95 pages into this. I don't like the narrator's voice in terms of, because I have been listening to the audio, but not in terms of the audio, in terms of the tone of the story and the way that the story is told. It's very, I want to say kind of like historical, or maybe like pretentious, very like, I feel like these characters are middle class, and it has that kind of tone. Like the way that I always describe it, which I don't know is if that's the way that translates well into you guys understanding what I mean, it's like a 1950s black and white movie kind of tone, which I can't really get behind. And then on top of that, we have the murder mystery element of it, which mystery is not something that I enjoy. And is this the year that I'm going to get comfortable with DNFing books? Because you guys know me, I'm normally somebody who perseveres through to the very end, even when I'm not enjoying something. And I don't know if I'm just finally coming to a point where like I realize that I need to stop doing that and acknowledge that if I don't like a book in the first 100 pages, it's not really going to get that much better for me. Because even in terms of Age of Ash, where I really struggled through the first half of this, I did really enjoy the second half of it, but still in a way where it only turned out as a 3-star read, which means that I liked it and I did like it, but it's not something to write home about, you know? Like it hasn't changed my life or altered my life in any way having read this book, because I just didn't enjoy it enough. So I think coming to terms with DNFs and being more comfortable with DNFs is something that I really need to work on, because now I feel really bad because I've been making this vlog where the point is for me to read these and tell you guys my thoughts, and 2 of them I've just DNF'd pretty early in as well. But my tolerance generally is low right now for having to struggle, and I'm suffering in other ways that I don't want to suffer when I'm reading as well. What I'm really looking for now just generally is distractions, and if I'm not enjoying a book, then it's not providing a distraction and I need to be reading something different. I'm really sad about this because the first round of the Goldsboro reading vlog was really successful. I think we had, was it 2 4s and a 3-star? Here we have 1 3-star and 2 DNFs. So in answer to the question, is the Goldsboro subscription worth my money? Right now the answer is no, it's not. And it's not really looking good for the future right now, because the first 2 books of the 3 that will be in the next installment of this series are historical, which is something I don't like. We have an alternate history about Marie Antoinette and one that's set in the 1920s. So I'm worried, because when I started this, it wasn't really a thing of being like, oh, is the Goldsboro subscription good? It was more of a like, you need to hold yourself accountable if you're paying for this subscription to actually read the books. But now it's at a point where it's like, well, for me personally right now, the Goldsboro subscription is not good. But we are going to stick this out for at least a year, which is what I said in the first installment, like we would do this for a year, because obviously, just generally speaking, there's books that I like and books that I don't like, and in a subscription service we're going to get a bit of a mix. But what we're looking for is that the majority of the books are 4 stars at least, and the odd ones out, like less than half of them, are 1, 2, 3 stars or DNF. And right now our ratio is not good. Out of 6 books we have 2 3 stars, 2 DNFs. But yeah, that's my verdict right now. No, the Goldsboro subscription service is not worth my money. So that brings us to the end of this vlog. It is now the 1st of May. Next week is my birthday. It's also the first week of the final book support group, which is a 2-week long this time. It's like a recurring readathon that is hosted by Steph from Steph Loves. This round is 2 weeks long, and it's just about like holding yourself accountable to reading sequels, which is something that I always need to do. So I'm going to be participating in that. So that is what I'm going to be focusing on in next week's vlog. So please do stay tuned if you are interested. I'm sorry that this vlog was such a struggle. Life has been a struggle for me this last week, and it definitely has, I think, translated into this vlog, but I'm so sorry, and I'm feeling a little bit better now, and I'm hoping to be all better very soon, because this is, it might be a little bit miserable for you guys to watch, but trust me, it's miserable for me to live through it as well. But I do hope you've enjoyed this vlog if you've made it this far. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.